Well, happy Saturday and good morning, everybody. Good to be with you on this Saturday morning on a game day. Yes, we have arrived at that portion of the Montreal Canadiens schedule that coincides with Super Bowl weekend and thus brings us some Super Bowl matinees. So, yeah, we'll definitely get into the Montreal Canadiens and New Jersey Devils, kicking off a double header of Montreal Canadiens action. And, of course, you can listen to it, as always, on TSN 690. It's New Jersey this afternoon. It's Tampa Bay on Sunday afternoon at 1 as the Montreal Canadiens, my friends, as we say good morning to people joining us live here as the Montreal Canadiens continue to slide down the Eastern Conference standing, 6 points out of a wild card, 7 points out of catching third place Tampa Bay. Be fascinating to see how Tampa Bay reacts and treats the Montreal Canadiens Sunday afternoon. Very anxious for that one. And of course, I'll be here live to preview that with you tomorrow, as I am right now, as we start to welcome people into the chat on this Saturday morning, as we say good morning, good morning, good morning. And I just want to remind people, we got a couple of things, some housekeeping here. So let's get going. I put up a poll question, so take a second if you don't mind. Cast your vote here because things are flying left, right, and center, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty involving the Montreal Canadiens trade speculation. Let's have some fun with that. Our poll question today for this Saturday morning is, what is the bigger Habs need, Noah Dobson or Dylan Cozens? Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Marlo. Thank you for being with me on this Saturday morning. And of course, as longtime loyal viewers of this channel are fully aware of, and as we say good morning to everybody here, good morning, good morning, good morning, Vinny. Thanks for being here with us. We're going to have some fun speculating on some Montreal Canadian trade rumors because our boy, Marco D'Amico, who's with me more or less every single week, has some interesting stuff to get to as we say good morning to Lior. And let's start right off the hop with what's going on, courtesy of RG Media, that has been all over NHL trade deadline as we get closer to the March 7th trade deadline. As you and I are here talking on the 8th day of February, Montreal has 2 more games to go before the Four Nations break. As I mentioned already, New Jersey today, Tampa Bay tomorrow, and then they're done. They don't play again until the 22nd of February. But it won't stop us from speculating on what's going on. Good morning, Ace's Cafe, joining us from California, where it's 6:32 in the morning for Ace. Thanks for being with us nice and early. But this story is nice and juicy, and that's why I think the poll question today is rather pertinent. What is the bigger need, Noah Dobson or Dylan Cozens? Both of those names are floating around in terms of trade rumors and speculation on the trade bait board. The New York Islanders came to terms with Brock Nelson, and they're right there. They're right there on the cusp of a playoff spot. I mean, the New York Islanders going into Saturday have 57 points. The Red Wings have 61 points as the owners of the second wild card. So what's going on? But I want to start with the report out of rg.org as it relates to what the Montreal Canadiens might be up to between now and the 7th of March. Hit me up in the comments. Do you feel strongly one way or another in regards to what you want to see the Montreal Canadiens do? Have you reached the point where Montreal and Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon really have to consider the value of selling pieces, whether it's a right-handed defenseman in David Savard, whether it's Jake Evans and his penalty-killing prowess, whether it's Yoel Armia? I love the idea that was floated out there this week that perhaps a package involving Yoel Armia and Jake Evans might be tempting to some teams that are obviously prioritizing shoring up their shorthanded abilities, especially when it comes to playoff time and shutting down the opposition. I love the thought that Ken Hughes could package Armia and Evans together in order to get a massive haul. But let's start here. A fit with the Montreal Canadiens at rg.org. As they write about here, even though the Canadiens have 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, and 3 thirds in the draft, and we know they have prospects. And we could talk about the Laval Rocket that won their 6th in a row. They beat the Marlies yesterday as Caden Primo runs his record to a perfect 10-0. Can the Montreal Canadiens put together a package of futures to push the needle from a value perspective for Buffalo Sabres center Dylan Cozens? And the quote here is, they're going to want a significant established piece or a high-level asset that they can flip for one, sources have indicated to rg.org. So what are we talking about specifically? Montreal would likely need to include one of their first-round picks and a younger player off their roster. And is that the position the Montreal Canadiens are in here? So let's talk about what that could entail before we get into how you feel about some of the names that are rumored to possibly move, in particular Noah Dobson of the New York Islanders, big minute-eating, offensive-minded defenseman who is a legit number one pair? Or do you look at it through the lens that Montreal needs to prioritize more offense and get to the point where maybe Dylan Cozens can slide in and step up? And when we look up and down the Montreal Canadiens rosters, we welcome more people in. Good morning, Recliner. Thanks for being with us this morning. That on the surface, I always try to approach this through the lens of what we know. Who is saying what? And Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon have been very, very consistent. And I mean, it wasn't long ago where we were reacting together about what Jeff Gordon had said on the Jimmy Murphy, Pierre Maguire podcast, that maybe they might contemplate being buyers between now and the NHL trade deadline. Well, it looks like that ship has sailed and the Montreal Canadiens are slipping further and further away from the playoff picture, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be reacting to making moves. And we could talk about the value of a Dylan Cozens, who's 25 years young. And granted, he does have a 31 goal season already in his back pocket. If Dylan Cozens were to come here, what would the Montreal Canadiens have to give up in order to acquire someone like that? And as we went through the draft picks, right? They have 2 first rounds, 2 seconds, 3 thirds coming up in the draft in 2025 this summer, right? But is Montreal willing to give up one of those first round picks and a young player off their roster? And on the surface, I mean, who are we talking about? That is the money question. And I have no qualms really if Dylan Cozens is really in play. If Dylan Cozens is really in play and we're talking about Buffalo is interested in one of the 2 first round picks the Montreal Canadiens have in the upcoming draft, I'm very willing to listen to that conversation. But who are we talking about in terms of a young player that Buffalo is looking at? Are they looking at a Logan Mailloux potentially? Are they looking at a Michael Hage? Who are they looking at exactly? And that's where I think this deal potentially falls short, because I'm not so sure that in the here and now, taking on a player like Dylan Cozens, who's 25 years young, who does have a 31 goal season under his belt, he can provide offense. I mean, he is a bigger body. Obviously, he's 6, he's stature wise, he's right up there. But in terms of the value that the Montreal Canadiens are going to give up, it's really hard to imagine a scenario in which I don't know if Buffalo, in my opinion, is not looking for what I would describe as a reclamation project for someone like Kirby Dach. And I don't think Logan Mailloux would be part of my package in terms of looking at someone like a Dylan Cozens from the Buffalo Sabres. On the other side, the one that really moves the needle for me, is Noah Dobson. Huge, huge fan. And if I were to answer my own poll question that we put up today, I want to see where we're at here. We were at 29 votes. The bigger Habs need Noah Dobson or Dylan Cozens. 55% of the 29 votes cast. 30 votes now, 57% in real time here. Vote for Noah Dobson is the higher priority for the Montreal Canadiens. And I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree with those that have answered with Noah Dobson. This guy is a massive minute-eating, legitimate top pair on the right side defenseman. But the problem is, again, if we defer to what RG Media has reported based on their sourced story, after Brock Nelson came to terms with the New York Islanders, Noah Dobson might be in play. And it's hard to envision a scenario here today where the New York Islanders sit with 57 points and they've won 8 of their last 10. They're 4 points removed from a playoff spot. Is the haul for a Noah Dobson deal potentially worth more than getting by the skin of your teeth into a playoff spot? I think if I'm running the New York Islanders and the deal is too good to pass up, I think I would take the haul for a Noah Dobson because I do believe they're going to get it. But here's the problem if we want to speculate on the Noah Dobson, as the comments continue to pour in this morning, and we'll get to them in a second. I just want to finish my thoughts on Noah Dobson, because when we look at the right side of the Canadiens defense, right? I mean, they have guys that, play on the other side and they look okay. I mean, even Adam Engstrom in Laval was doing a little bit of that. Goulet obviously has played on his offside many, many times, and he doesn't look nearly as good, in my opinion, when he does play on the offside. So in the world where you're trying to get comfy cozy and everybody's in their proper spots in the top 6 on defense, The New York Islanders want players that can contribute. The New York Islanders, according to RG and the sources that they have in this story, that they want someone that can score and that can come in. And so whether we're looking at the options, I mean, clearly right off the hop, if I'm the New York Islanders, the first thing I'm doing is I'm calling and I'm saying, oh, you want Noah Dobson? Okay. The conversation starts with, I'm probably asking for Demidov. If I'm the New York Islanders, I'm asking for Demidov. And if I'm Ken Hughes, I hang up the phone. That's a non-starter, obviously. And then I'll pick up the phone again and I'll call Ken Hughes back and say, okay, fine. Demidov, I get it. I had to ask though, right? I had to try. So if it's not Demidov, I want Cole Caulfield. I hang up the phone again. Cole Caulfield is not on the table for transaction, even if it relates to a player of the value of a Noah Dobson, right? Who's got 6 goals on 18 assists on 24 points. He plays over 24 minutes a game. He's 25 years old. He's 6'4". He provides tremendous offense, and he's coming off a 70-point campaign a year ago. And do the New York Islanders want to move forward, or again, do they want the package deal? So when we look at what's available and what's being reported as it relates to the New York Islanders, because they have other pieces, whether it's Jean-Gabriel Pageau or Kyle Palmieri, and now shopping apparently Noah Dobson. He is available for trade according to sources, and that is a piece the team is willing to part with in order to get that scoring presence that they have wanted for multiple seasons. So just to clarify, you even have the Hockey News' Stefan Rosner, who covers the New York Islanders, talking about the potential of Dobson being out there. And he's in the final year of a 3-year extension. He makes $4 million a year. He's an RFA when his contract expires. But you know it and I know it. There is offensive firepower that is apparently out there to be had. And you got to go to the West Coast and you got to look at Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. I do not believe the Montreal Canadiens have what it takes, or they're willing to put a package together that could be more impressive than Elias Pettersson if, again, we're speculating, if, again, that's where the New York Islanders are and that's who they're looking at. I mean, on the surface, can Montreal get close? Can Montreal get close to a potential Elias Pettersson type value if the New York Islanders and Vancouver Canucks want to strike a deal? Pettersson, Dobson, they swap venues and swap cities, right? Look at Mike Matheson on the Canadiens back end, right? I mean, they need more offense. They need more, they need someone obviously to slide in. So you're trading an offensive-minded defenseman for an older offensive-minded defenseman in someone like Mike Matheson. I don't know if anybody really, and we're talking anybody, by that I mean Buffalo, the New York Islanders, two teams we're talking about because they're heavily involved in speculation, whether it's the Sabres, Dylan Cozens, or again, here, the Islanders, Noah Dobson, that I don't think either team is interested in Kirby Dach, because that's the logical maneuver, right? If you're looking at this through the lens of being a Montreal Canadiens fan, Kirby Dach. No, it's multiple pieces. And that's why I have a hard time. As much as I think the priority, if Montreal can go out and get a Noah Dobson at a realistic price without, again, deviating from the plan, because we're working with the information we have, and that's Gorton and Hughes. They have been so consistent here. They have been so consistent about not really moving aggressively away from their plan, which I respect. I really do. They have a vision, and in their heads, they know how to build a hockey team, and they don't really want to move from that. But is Noah Dobson so attractive, so lucrative, that he's worth getting off the path that you're blazing right now? Up for debate. I'm fascinated to hear your perspective. Habs Nation, weigh in on the Noah Dobson, because is a package that we can put together from the Montreal angle, involving Mike Matheson, involving Kirby Dach, involving futures, involving a first-round draft pick for a future RFA in Noah Dobson. Because if they're looking around, and that's again, I'll go back to those reports. The sources in the story from rg.org on the Noah Dobson, that he is apparently available for trade. And the Islanders are looking for offense, and there's interest in Vancouver's Elias Pettersson, and that obviously puts together a nice little package. So at this point, it appears there will be several moving pieces here. And if we're talking about the New York Islanders looking at more offense and Elias Pettersson, I don't know if that's a Patrick Roy guy, and maybe it puts Montreal back into the conversation, because if the rumors are true, out of Vancouver, where JT Miller got shipped out to the New York Rangers, that they wanted JT Miller to soften up and build a callus on Elias Pettersson, confront him, challenge him all the time. And Pettersson, by all accounts, those rumors haven't gone away, so I'm comfortable talking about them, that he wanted nothing to do with that. And that ultimately JT Miller's the guy no longer with Vancouver. So can I see a world in which Elias Pettersson, who doesn't have a tough guy reputation, could go to a team coached by a guy like Patrick Roy, who isn't shy to tell you how you feel in good or bad times? Hard to envision a scenario like that. But let me know, what do you think? To the Montreal Canadiens, can you see them? Is it worth it? Is Noah Dobson the type of player in your mind today that is worth getting off the path of this rebuild because a player like that is now available? I prioritize Noah Dobson ahead of Dylan Cozens today in a 1v1. And we're going to have a lot more on this week. Our friend Marco D'Amico from RG Media, who's with me on a weekly basis and will be again this week. And we're going to expand on all this. We'll get his insight, right? Because he's got the sources and he has the story about who's available and what a potential package Montreal could potentially put together. Because I really do believe this. I really, really strongly believe this. We're going to be up for what I think is going to be a crazy ride here. And by crazy, I mean highly engaging, highly entertaining, and that the NHL trade deadline coming between now and March 7th. And I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to be involved. And I think at this point, knowing where they are and looking at the value of the trade bait board as an example, when we look at all these players, right? And when we look at the trade bait list, I mean, JT Miller's gone. Drew O'Connor's gone. Cody Cece's gone. Michael Granlund's gone. Taylor Hall's gone. So we've already seen a bunch of moves. And the reporting of this NHL salary cap shooting up through the roof, I think, is going to make teams more aggressive as they try to position themselves. So the question is, how aggressive would you like to see the Montreal Canadiens get? And do you prioritize Noah Dobson over Dylan Cozens or vice versa? Let's get to some of your comments. Thanks for being with me live on this Saturday. Good to see everybody here. And make sure you're back all week, because Marco D'Amico will be my guest, and we will get into heavy trade speculation about the Montreal Canadiens. Is there a package in the NHL where teams will be looking at acquiring both Jake Evans and Yoel Armia, getting a unbelievably strong shorthanded tandem that they can slide right in, and you don't need to worry about chemistry because these two guys know their games inside and out. So we have a lot to get to today. Thank you so much for being with me on this Saturday morning. So I hopefully you've answered our poll question here. Morgan, Cozens' nickname, the workhorse from White Horse. And that's the thing too. Like always, like I know I've said it already a couple of times, but let's continue to form opinions based on the knowledge that we have from the comments that leaders, whether it's a player or a coach or a manager, have said publicly on the record. And I do certainly appreciate the transparency. There's more transparency around the Montreal Canadiens than there has been in a second. Ace looking at Jaden Struble as possible trade bait. And that's the thing. I really like Jaden Struble. I think the Montreal Canadiens need to be a tougher team to match up against, especially on the back end. I'll remind everybody, if in case they've forgotten, when the Montreal Canadiens in the all North Canadian division year went to the Stanley Cup final as Western Conference champions, they were a team not to be messed with when you crossed into the Canadiens' defensive zone. They had hard-hitting, tough as nails defenseman led by Captain Shea Weber. Phil Deneau was a pain in the you-know-what, and Carey Price ultimately closed the door when he needed to. So you put those two things together. I'd love to carbon copy that kind of formula. Get steady to great goaltending, a defenseman that punish when you get too close to the blue paint, and have some offense from everybody back-checking, right? Phil Deneau did it, Shea Weber did it, Carey Price did it, and down the list we go. And that's where I'm not I can understand Ace's perspective about Jaden Struble, um, maybe going through a little bit of a sophomore slump. And I can understand that, especially when we go through what the Canadians went through, auditioning a bunch of players to the point where Justin Barron was expendable. He gets moved to Nashville. And if I'm Jaden Struble, like don't get too insecure about your future on the Montreal Canadiens. Don't get too insecure about your role on the Montreal Canadiens, because all you have to do is, if you're Jaden Struble, all you have to do is look down the hall, look to the next stall, look at Arbor Jacki, look where that guy was, and look where he is now, where he's an everyday defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens. The fact that Arbor Jacki was willing to obviously put in the work to round out his game, where he's just not this menace on the ice. He takes probably still too many penalties, but nevertheless, I think he's a smarter. We've watched the evolution of Arbor Jacki right before our very eyes. So I believe if Arbor Jacki could do what he's done, good coaching, good student, applying what you're taught, I think Jaden Struble can be right there. Good morning, Recliner. The Canadians are committed to building their team from within. I don't disagree with that point of view, and I'm on board with that. But I think we can also agree that today the Montreal Canadiens have holes. The rebuild obviously isn't over. Has a corner been turned in the Montreal Canadiens rebuild? I think we can look at this and say not really. Not really, because I try to be as consistent as I can. And if you've been watching, listening to this channel and to me and my opinions for a minute, I have prioritized games that matter. I want this team to avoid as much garbage time in season as they possibly can. But you know what else has happened? When everyone started to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, when they were beating the likes of Florida and Tampa Bay and Washington and Colorado and Vegas, remember how great that was? Remember how awesome that was? Where Montreal was winning 13 of 17 games and scooping up all the points more than anybody else. What happened? What happened? Injuries, no doubt. Emil Heineman threw things out of whack a little bit. The Caden Gooley accident, the lacerated quadricep, was devastating. But also, and I choose to look at it through this lens, and in my point of view, feel free to weigh in with your own, that when pressure started to mount and games started to matter a little bit more, I didn't think the Montreal Canadiens leveled up. I didn't. I think there was an element of them playing with house money, catching a lot of people by surprise. Look how balanced Montreal is. Oh, look how disciplined Montreal is. Oh, they've gotten better goaltending. Patrick Laine scoring on the power play. Like, all of that came fast and furious, and teams were like put on their back heel and weren't prepared for it. And then they got prepared for it. Like, welcome to the pros. This isn't beer league with our friends at 10:30 at the Bonaventure Ice Rink, Like, we don't care who's on the other end of the rink. No, this is their job. This is what they do. This is professional hockey at the highest level, where they go into a game and like, okay, Patrick Laine down in the slot, got to cover that guy. Look at Cole Caulfield. He moves around the ice. Look at Lane Hutson's habits, yada, yada, yada. Teams really prepare for you all the time. You can't afford to let Patrick Laine beat you all the time. So how do we stop that, right? So that's what I mean by looking at the Canadiens building from within, as Recliner points out here. Yes, stay the path, trust your guys, trust that your scouts, amateur and professional, did their jobs and did their due diligence in vetting players that they want to bring into the organization. But no team is perfect. No prospect hits as they're expected to hit. And the Montreal Canadiens still have holes in their game. Sans doute. No doubt. So I believe Kirby Dach was a massive X factor going into this season. Has Kirby Dach shown me enough that you can check that off the list of things accomplished? Number 2 center, done. Power play, done. Depth goaltending, done. No. The rebuild is still going on, and I'm not so sure today that Kirby Dach is the answer to play behind Nick Suzuki. So looking at guys that can play big minutes on the right side as in a top pair situation, who do the Canadiens have that can do that right now? I believe Lane Hutson ultimately will get there. We'll get there. But if we're seriously talking about a 24-year-old player of the caliber of a Noah Dobson, 70 points, offensive-minded defenseman, plays over 24 minutes a night, and plays top pair minutes on the right side, a massive need for the Montreal Canadiens, because Logan Mailloux, I believe in him. I believe his game. I would say almost 90% of Logan Mayou's game is NHL ready today. The other 10%, it's a massive 10% that he needs to get better at, and that is zone coverage in his own end. He is, after all, a defenseman. Caden Gooley for sure. But, as much as I like Caden Gooley, who's evolving into a leader on this team and plays big minutes for Martin St. Louis, Caden Gooley gets hurt. Whether it's an accident or not, Caden Gooley has shown that he's going to miss time. I'm not saying that Caden Gooley is expendable, but you got to plan for this stuff. You need depth. You need that next man up, but the next man up has to be, okay, yes, this is a deep, well-run organization. So I reiterate that when a player like Noah Dobson is allegedly available and you're looking at it through the lens of your own hockey club, you if the deal is there to be had and you've got the pieces to make it happen, I think you really got to be aggressive, and I think you got to make it happen. You got to seize that moment. But I do not believe that the Montreal Canadiens are willing to move the pieces that I think the New York Islanders are going to want for a player of Noah Dobson's caliber. And that's why I think Vancouver today with Elias Pettersson probably has right now the edge over everybody else. I think Montreal would have to be very, very desperate in order to get to a package that would be considered as valuable as an Elias Pettersson. And then we could talk about, do you want to trade inside your own conference, or would you rather deal with a Western Conference team? All of these things I think are variables that the Islanders would consider if we're talking about a deal with Montreal, Vancouver. Is Calgary sniffing around? There's lots of teams, obviously, when a Noah Dobson deal becomes available. So let's get back to some of your comments here. Good morning, Marlo. No way they trade Gage. I'm going to say that's probably Michael Hage. And I'm good with that too. I'm fine with that. Because I mean, he's having a phenomenal season in the NCAA. And as a lot of people have pointed out here, it's not like the Montreal Canadiens are at that point where they need to be hyper aggressive, right? Let's see here. Recliner, the Canadiens have a Noah Dobson in their system already. Are you referring to Lane Hudson? Are you referring to Logan Mayou on the right side? Who exactly are we talking about here? Why is Cozens even available? Is it the 7.2 AAV? Well, I think there's a couple of things here when we talk about why is Dylan Cozens available, right? I think you're right, Morgan, when you bring up the AAV. And then we can also talk about Dylan Cozens in the same light as a player who got the bag and then what has he done with it, right? So there is this sense of, oh, he's gotten the big cash, but yet the production has really dropped off, right? Like, are we even talking about a guy like Trevor Zegras at this point? So what I like about the deal involving Dylan Cozens is that he's a Buffalo Sabre, and there's a track record of Buffalo Sabre players. Whether we look at Casey Middlestad or whether we look at obviously Jack Eichel, guys that were once Buffalo Sabre players inside the organization and for a variety of reasons don't pan out. They get moved. Buffalo is a dysfunctional team that habitually makes bad decisions. And if I'm Ken Hughes, obviously I'm sniffing around to the point where, can I take advantage of Kevin Adams and the fact that he's got a quick trigger? Perhaps, I'm not so sure. But I know that I like his size. I like the upside. I like the fact that, he comes from a Buffalo organization where I think it's not fun going to work all the time, especially when you're young and you want to win and you want to be in a rabbit market, So I think it's still too early to know. Ultimately, again, Montreal has 2 first-round picks. I don't know where those picks are going to end up. Like, what type of hockey is Montreal going to play? How are they going to do this weekend? New Jersey and Tampa Bay. And then they're back in action on the 22nd of February. And what's the end of their season going to look like? When Montreal played their 52nd game of the season, they had an even 30 games left. Montreal basically at the 30-game marker had to play 700 hockey. They had to win 7 out of every 10 games to get to 93, 94 points. So the math, obviously, I don't think favors the Montreal Canadiens, and that's why I think we're here talking about speculation involving a couple of big players. So when we talk about what sources are saying, and some have indicated that the Canadiens aren't likely to move their 2 first-round picks until basically they have a strong understanding of, yeah, we're where we are way out of the playoff picture. And then obviously, if those picks turn into inside the top 10, I even think Montreal would be less reluctant because at one point we're talking about Montreal picking 11th and 18th overall. I think I could see a world in which Montreal perhaps moves one of those 2 picks. So the Calgary Flames continue to play well, and Calgary right now is on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. They're trailing Vancouver by just 2 points in the Western Conference playoff race. So obviously, I think if you're a Montreal fan, you're cheering for the Calgary Flames to fall off for a second. Um, and we'll see whether or not the Calgary Flames are going to make a move, because that will, again, might dictate what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon ultimately end up doing. So let me get back to the poll question. I want to see the poll question where we're at today. We're at 76 votes. Bigger Habs need Noah Dobson or Dylan Cozens, 51%. So it's still a coin flip. It's still a coin flip. It's that tight. What do you guys want to see, Dylan Cozens or Noah Dobson? And how aggressive should the Montreal Canadiens get? Do you look at Noah Dobson through the lens of, oh, wow, he's available. It's time to really consider Montreal getting hyper aggressive? More of your comments coming in. Good morning, Vinny. I feel like the price to get Dobson will only create other holes, especially with scoring forwards. And look, I mean, that it's a fair point. Dobson in the final year of a 3-year extension, he makes $4 million a year. And if we're talking about what the New York Islanders are wanting, they want scoring presence. And the Islanders have been looking for more of a scoring presence for several seasons now. And I believe that you would be a bad general manager if you're calling Ken Hughes and you're looking for scoring and you're an opposing general manager, you're not asking for Ivan Demidov, you hang up the phone, right? I mean, you shouldn't have that job if you're not at least asking for Ivan Demidov, right? I'm talking if I'm the opposing general manager. I want more scoring. That's the first guy on my list. Obviously, it's a non-starter. You call Lou Lamoriello calls Ken Hughes for in a possible deal. Lou, what do you want? I want Demidov. Hang up the phone. Call back. Lou, who do you want? I want Cole Caulfield. I hang up the phone. I hang up the phone. Non-negotiable. I'm not moving either player. Steph Howard, good morning. I would love to see a line for 2 games with Laine, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky. I think Caulfield could still produce with Doc and Newhook. Interesting proposal. The one thing that gives me pause, is I don't think Patrick Laine has the speed to keep up 5-on-5. I really don't. And when I watch Suzuki and Cole Caulfield zip around, I think they're an electrifying tandem. I think they know their habits very, very well. And I think Patrick Laine is as smart of a hockey player as he is, and obviously with a lethal shot. Yes, I could see something happening there, but I think that's a process. That sounds more like a project to me. Um, so in the here and now, I don't think I would move Patrick Laine up to the top line. I think I'm going to stick to where I think Patrick Laine is best suited, on a third line, playing 10 to 12 minutes a night. And when it's power play time, out he goes for me. And we'll see what this offseason has, for Patrick Laine. And I guess we'll determine whether or not he's, reluctant to go at 100% because of injury, and that a full offseason where he can rehab, train, get healthier, and what next fall might look like. I'm not so sure, but in the here and now, it's the pace. It's the pace more than anything that gives me pause, really. Which Dobson are you getting, last year or this year? Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's on 24 points now. He was on 70 last year. The same question, Recliner, could be asked about Dylan Cozens. And that's where, doing your due diligence, making sure you have good sources that can provide decent information about what life is like. Not everybody's hardwired to just go to work and you win. Who cares? You lose. Who cares? You're still making bank as an NHL player. Maybe Dylan Cozens has had enough. Maybe he doesn't see a future. And I think we can all relate to this, whether you work, an accounting job or whether you work in a recycling plant, is it fun going to the job all the time? Do you have a boss that's an idiot that is probably dumber than you and has no idea what they're doing, but somehow they're your superior? Like, it's mentally draining, and I think that equivalent to whatever it might be in hockey, I think it exists for these guys. Like, I do believe this. Not everybody in the NHL has this romantic idea of winning the Stanley Cup. Some guys do, obviously, but not everybody. For some players in the NHL, it's their job. It's what they do. They collect a paycheck. They work hard. They're there for their teammates and their brothers. But ultimately, not everybody is there to win the Stanley Cup. Au contraire, not everybody wants to play for a sad sack team that has no direction and the future remains a dark question mark. And the previous 10 years have remained what? Exactly, right? So I don't know which side of the fence Dylan Cozens falls on. Is he a paycheck guy? And the results are the results. He would prefer to win, but doesn't lose sleep if the team's slumping. Or is it the opposite of that? Is tired of the lack of culture, winning culture, lack of what are we doing? What are we building towards? Like, did you see the survey in The Athletic this week? The infamous anonymous player survey? And what did they say about Lindy Ruff? Anonymous players talking about how they don't want to play for Lindy Ruff because he's old, he's out of touch, maybe. Like, I mean, that's a couple of people's opinions. But maybe there's some truth to that. And maybe Dylan Cozens is like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? It's normal. Like, some guys want to win, some guys don't. Good morning, Steph. Nice to see you, brother. Yeah, looking at, again, these prime foundation pieces, right? Leor, Dobson, left or right? He's a right defenseman. Top pair right defenseman. Good morning, Mark. If it's a sign and trade, Slav, Reinbacher, they should be more than enough. Or Slav and our first. So I love that you brought that up because I have him in my notes here this morning. I have Slavkovsky ? I wrote two of them, actually, when I was putting together what I thought could be a decent deal if you're looking at Noah Dobson coming off a 3-year extension where he's going to be an RFA, making $4 million a year. And I do believe the Vancouver Canucks are probably, if Noah Dobson is really on the market, I think Vancouver is going to make the deal. And I think Elias Pettersson goes the other way. Islanders want scoring. What can the Montreal Canadiens do to make it a package? Mike Matheson, offensive defenseman for offensive defenseman. My deal would also include Kirby Dach. Maybe you can sell the New York Islanders on the future. And the Montreal Canadiens do have a lot of picks, and they have futures that they can play with. How comfortable are they with certain guys? Joshua Ottawa is back healthy. Caden Primo is 10-0 with the Laval Rocket. The Laval Rocket have the most points of any team in the American Hockey League. Could Logan Mailloux sweeten a deal? I wouldn't be good with the Montreal Canadiens moving away from Logan Mailloux. I believe Montreal needs a Logan Mailloux. They need that style, that ruggedness, that toughness, that I'm going to stand up for my teammates no matter what attitude. Logan Mailloux, my friends, is that guy. Montreal needs that guy. Mailloux is borderline untouchable for me today. But would I be comfortable if the Montreal Canadiens traded Calgary's first, Kirby Dach, Mike Matheson for Noah Dobson? I would greenlight that deal today. I don't believe the New York Islanders would. Like I said, I believe the Vancouver Canucks might be in the driver's seat there. Steph, back in the conversation, we're going to have Demidov coming in as well as potential offensive players. I love Caulfield, but I think he's too small, salary too high. I would rather have Dobson. I mean, listen, Cole Caulfield is the best goal scorer I have seen on the Montreal Canadiens in my lifetime. Pure goal scorer. And I still think he hasn't reached his ceiling yet. I think Cole Caulfield is a smart player. I think Cole Caulfield's a leader on this Canadiens team. I think he's well-liked. I think he provides a different attitude, different energy into the Montreal Canadiens room. And I think he's a very, very smart, high hockey IQ player. That's what gives me pause. And I am not on board. Cole Caulfield, to me, is a build-around player. Cole Caulfield, in my opinion, is the most legitimate first-line player on this team right now. more than Suzuki, hell of a lot more credible as a first liner than Uri Slafkovsky. He's more of a first liner than Patrick Laine. Again, Cole Caulfield is as close to having a legitimate on any team first line player in Cole Caulfield. So if I'm building a culture and if I'm building for the future and I'm putting pieces on the board together, getting goals from a top line that is a nightmare to match up with, right? Because again, yeah, Cole Caulfield, obviously, he's a smaller guy, but he's very smart. He's been small his entire life. He's had to evade and avoid his entire life playing high level hockey. So I'm not really worried about all that. And that shoulder problem that bugged him a couple of years ago doesn't seem to be a lingering issue for the guy. And he's also an important player to this market. He's the favorite player of a lot of people here. And I want to believe the Canadiens learned that lesson about listening to some of your fans about some of their favorite players. Cough, cough, PK Subban. So this team needs goals. The Montreal Canadiens have been the Sahara Desert of offense, arguably my entire life. And for the first time, they have a legitimate top line player that I could arguably see play on most teams' number one line across the league. I am not moving that player today. And just to have Ivan Demidov, yes, more looks, more looks, more looks. And that's the truth of the matter here. Like, we can admire and respect the Canadians' work ethic, right? Everybody works hard for the most part. They pull at the same time. All those other cliche bullshit things we talk about all the time, right? And it does come down to this simple base fact: you need stars. If you want to win the Stanley Cup, you need to have a minimum one star on your team. And Ivan Demidov is going to be that guy. I believe Ivan Demidov is going to be the superstar that you and I have been waiting for if you are a certain age. If you're watching me and you grew up watching Guy Lafleur and the great Canadians teams of the 60s into the 70s, fine. You've seen that before. But if you're from an older generation, you haven't seen it. You've seen a collective. You've seen it in goal. You've seen a couple of Stanley Cups, right? Because of the collective. In 86, the team collectively scored more than 300 goals. In 93, they scored more than 300 goals, right? They had great goaltending in both Stanley Cup runs. Hell, even in 89, when Calgary came to the Forum and beat the Canadiens on Forum ice. In 1989, I hate you, Lanny McDonald. It was collective, and superstar goaltending. That was, the Coles notes of those last Stanley Cup runs. So fast forward to present day, having a bona fide goal scorer, an elite level, top 15 goal scorer in hockey in Cole Caulfield, add Ivan Demidov to the mix, and let's see where this team can go as Logan Mailloux matures, as the Canadiens' goaltending rounds into form. As some people suggest, stick to the plan. Some, like Recliner here, that no player is worth getting off the path of a rebuild. I know surely that if we went to an exaggerated route, if, for example, a Recliner, I said Connor McDavid was available, I'm sure that would buck the trend of no player is worth getting off the path of the rebuild. But of course, I understand the point. Good morning, Leor. Gooley or Matheson for Noah Dobson? I'm sure they would be attracted to Caden Gooley, but I remind you, the sources that are reporting that Noah Dobson is available out of the Islanders have been hunting for goals for many seasons, and they want goals. So I think that takes someone like Caden Gooley out of the mix. Good morning, Fox Sakes. Nice to see you. I don't see any reason to pay Cozens $7 million a year, says Deuce. I mean, he's a hell of a player. And knowing the environment in Buffalo and knowing the history that players leave that city and leave that market and that organization and go on to do unbelievable things. Yeah, we've seen it across the board, didn't it? Ryan O'Reilly won a Conn Smythe, didn't he? I mean, Jack Eichel's doing what he's doing. Yeah, there's something to getting out of Buffalo and finding a better place, a more inspiring place to play. And I'm not saying that's where Dylan Cozens falls into, but it's happened more and more. Good morning, Ace. What's happened to Nick Ehlers? Nick Ehlers, I'm telling you, he's my guy. He's my guy this summer. I'd love to see the Canadiens go out and target. But we're having fun speculating with the New York Jets, arguably the best team in hockey. Good morning, Rick Springhetti. Nick votes Noah Dobson for our poll question today. Bigger Habs need Dobson or Dylan Cozens. 99 votes cast, 54% weighing in with Noah Dobson to 46% for Dylan Cozens. The Islanders are not looking to rebuild from scratch. They want to retool, so I think they would want a Slafkovsky or a Caulfield in return. Thank you, Rick. Cole Caulfield is not on the board. How would you feel about Uri Slafkovsky? How would you feel if the Montreal Canadiens made Uri Slafkovsky expendable via trade? I would find it shocking. I would find it shocking. And this is where I think the rubber meets the road in terms of separating emotion, ego, and hockey sense. Because in a world in which Uri Slafkovsky is packaged to the New York Islanders for Noah Dobson, that is a massive, massive admission of we picked the wrong guy. That's how I would see it. He was the number one overall selection. And yes, he's having a regressing year. It's hard to be optimistic about Uri Slafkovsky's future other than, the fallback, the crutch, right? What's everybody's crutch when we talk about Uri Slafkovsky? What's the crutch? His age. Age. He's this, but he's only this. But he's only 20. He's only 20. Yeah, he's only 20. Sometimes the games that played in the NHL as a sample size, sometimes, in my opinion, matter more than how old you are. Your number is your number, right? And have you ever experienced this before where, maybe you're an average student in school, you go through high school, you go through CEGEP, maybe you dip into university, and then you get into the real world. Has that ever happened to you where you feel like you blossomed and you grew and took 15 steps by learning more in the real world than you ever did in the halls of school? I can relate to that a little bit. I could definitely relate to some of that. 100% in my personal life where, school was school, but when I got into the real world and got real world training, whether it's in radio or anything else, I feel like I did much better in the real world environment than I ever did in school, whether it was at Laurel Hill Academy or going to Vanier. And I wouldn't be surprised if some players react that way, where some guys can leave junior hockey and jump into the NHL and look great immediately, or go to the AHL and for whatever reason they get graduated to pro hockey and they're so much better, right? I can't explain it, but some people thrive under the real world sink or swim kind of approach. And that's when I bring up, how many games does Uri Slafkovsky have under his belt? That is real life working experience. And I personally am not at the point today where the New York Islanders call for Cole Caulfield, I hang up the phone. If they call for Uri Slafkovsky, I'm not making that deal. He's too big. He's too young. And he's their former number one overall pick. I think it's too early to pull the chute on Uri Slafkovsky today. As Deuce says here, Caulfield is a non-starter. I agree. Zeph, Caulfield, a more complete player today than he was 2 years ago. And that's the thing, too. That's what leads me down the path that I think Cole Caulfield's a very smart, high hockey IQ player. I think his vision is underrated. His playmaking is underrated. And his goal scoring is clearly defined as a lead, in my opinion. Good morning, Leo. I would do Slav for Dobson in a heartbeat. I understand. I'm not there yet, but I respect the point of view. We got some back and forth here. Let's see what we got here. JB, Sean, you do. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the compliments today. And as I mentioned in my pinned comment here today, as the live stream continues to go, as I wish you all a very happy Saturday. And don't forget, if you want to leave a comment, make sure to throw a little like onto the video as it continues to help us grow. And you see that little dollar sign there where you can show your support for the Sean Starr Show, as it helps to continue to fund this show. And of course, it allows me to put some money in the pockets of my guests, in particular, someone like Marco D'Amico, who's been all over RG Media with various sources. So all the contributors that you see on my show, these guys don't come on for free. And so that allows us to continue to do this on a regular basis, making sure everybody works and everybody gets paid for their work today. So if you don't mind, there's that little dollar sign there on next to the chat button there, and certainly appreciate it as we move along with more of your comments today. Let's say hello to Tommy. We have a lot of defensemen coming. We don't have a lot of centers. Cozens can take pressure off Suzuki, etc. I like the Dylan Cozens acquisition. I like the fact that I don't believe that Dylan Cozens, as far as my level of understanding is concerned, that we're talking about someone here that has gotten the bag, got the $7.2 million salary, and has now called it a career. No, I don't believe in that. I really don't. I do believe that there's something about the environment. I believe that there's a lack of really legitimate end goal for the Buffalo Sabres. And some guys are tired, man. Some guys are tired, especially when they see former teammates leave the team they were once a part of and then go off and have success individually or with a team. Fox Sakes back in the chat. Thank you. I would trade Evans and Reinbacher for Noah Dobson. I don't think that gets it done. I don't believe that gets it done. You know, I think I have more room in my brain to talk about David Reinbacher in a possible trade. But the thing is, right? The thing is with David Reinbacher is, who are you getting? Who are you getting in David Reinbacher? That's the thing. You know, at this point, you're selling the New York Islanders on potential. You're selling him on, okay, I know you haven't seen him, but trust me when I tell you, and your scouts will back this up when they do their own due diligence. He doesn't have the games played. It's, you're giving up moral, in my opinion. Noah Dobson is a sure thing. David Reinbacher is not a sure thing. And if the reports are consistent from RG Media, let me put it back up on the screen here. It's the fact that the New York Islanders are looking for scoring. They want scoring, and Jake Evans is not scoring, everybody. Like, what's that quote? You see it on your screen. They're going to want a significant established piece or a high-level asset they can flip for one. Jake Evans is a UFA. Jake Evans is a rental player. Jake Evans is a rental player at this point, right? What's up, Hockey Dad? Retains some of Yoel Armia's contract. Could definitely trade Evans and Armia as a package. I love that idea. We talked about that this week. I wish I knew who kind of came up with that thought. I know it wasn't me. I wish it was. The fact that Jake Evans and Yoel Armia could be packaged together in a kind of bundle is very, very appealing to me, and I think would be very appealing to other markets. And that's why I think we've reached the point in time, in my opinion, where if Jake Evans isn't ready to make concessions, if Jake Evans is prioritizing getting as much money for his future as possible, I think the Montreal Canadiens got to move on from Jake Evans. I think we've reached that point for me. Like, Montreal is now 7 points from third, 6 points from the wild card. They don't have winning habits. They have lost whatever amount of confidence they once had. It's Kaiser Soze. It's gone, vanished into the wind. Martin St. Louis was asked about whether or not he feels that his team is going to make the playoffs. And what did the coach answer? I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about building winning habits. So that tells me that the Montreal Canadiens are still building. The coach is still trying to get his guys to play the right way as consistently as they possibly can, and that the priority isn't for them to make the playoffs. I do believe that. I do believe that Martin St. Louis' answer about, hey, do you think you're going to make the playoffs this year, told me a lot. That it's still very much a process. And as much as they liked all those wins after Christmas from the 28th of December right through half of January, I suppose, that as good as that was, it's mission incomplete still. It's mission incomplete for some of these for some of these players. And I still believe, and I do think this is the right thing, that when the Montreal Canadiens had more pressure on their back and more eyes on them because they were winning hockey, and Jakub Dobeš was unbeaten and winning all these games and looking so good, that the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think, rose to the challenge. They caught teams by surprise. And then when everybody started to watch them and talk about them on a national level, I think the Montreal Canadiens kind of faded a little bit. And that's okay, because it just reaffirms what we already know. The rebuild is not over, and that no corners have been turned. That's the lesson I have learned here. And as we move forward this season, as we get close to the 7th of March and the trade deadline, they have assets that other teams want and other teams need. And I really do believe the time between the 22nd of February and March 7th, the trade deadline, I think the shit is going to hit the fan in an amazing way. I think we're going to have so much fun on this channel together. I think we're going to be reacting to some moves. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to be players before the March 7th trade deadline. Unfortunately, I think the Four Nations is going to be a little bit of a lull. And if you weren't aware of this, I'll point this out to you now. There is no roster freeze. There is no roster freeze during the Four Nations exhibition, right? So just so we're aware that at this point, I don't believe we're going to see a transaction, because Gary Bettman's going to be upset. You don't want to upset little Gary. Little Gary's going to get upset. Don't want to upset little Gary. But as soon as the Four Nations, the what is it? Is it a gold medal game? Is it a championship game in Boston? What a fabricated tournament this is. But I'm still excited. Fabricated, but excited that as soon as the Four Nations championship game is over in Boston, I think the shit's going to hit the fan in a really good way. Lots of comments today. Is this? Papatatos. What's up? Anastasios. Tikanisre. Nice to see you. Owen Beck proved himself over the weekend. Good comment, Ace. I like that a lot. I like Owen Beck quite a bit. He's a smart player. And that, I'm glad you brought his name into the conversation, Ace, because to me, he's not going to come in and do exactly Jake Evans' job, but I think it won't take long before Owen Beck grows into that role. Tommy talking about Dylan Cozens, 6'3", 210. Offensive upside is okay. He's got 31 goals. Not bad. Doesn't mind getting to the dirty areas of the ice. Tommy, Dylan Cozens fan, as am I. And I think Dylan Cozens to me is a more realistic get for the Montreal Canadiens. But as we go about it here, when we talk about other teams that are potentially in the mix for Dylan Cozens, let's take you back to the RG Media story, and we can go through it together here. RG.org, through the rumblings around the league, Kevin Weeks indicates the Canadiens have shown interest in Sabres forward Dylan Cozens. According to a source close to the Sabres, the team is looking for a comparable player at center, a top 4 right shot defenseman, or an elite NHL prospect ready to step in immediately. And that's, that in and of itself is very interesting to me, because when we just go through what sources are telling us about the ask from Buffalo, they want a comparable player at center. A comparable player. Dylan Cozens is off kind of back-to-back down years. You want a comparable player? Fine, I'll give you Christian Dvorak. You want a top 4 right shot? How about you want Adam Engstrom? Adam Engstrom can play on the right side. How about that? Can that get that deal done? Obviously not. But if a comparable player, Dylan, Kirby Dach is not a comparable player to Dylan Cozens. End of sentence, no doubt. But could Ken Hughes sell Buffalo on a project that is Kirby Dach and try to lure him in and maybe attach another prospect to that along with a defenseman? It seems as though that Montreal would have to get really aggressive in order to get this guy away. And I do believe that not everybody loves trading inside their division, hell, let alone their conference. And that if Montreal really wants Dylan Cozens, I think they're going to have to pay through the teeth for it. David James. Good morning, David. Kirby Dach needs to go. Yeah, I don't, Kirby Doc to me looks more and more like a winger. Casey Middlestad has 11 points in 2 months. He's a minus 13 on a good Avs team. Good point, Deuce. Thanks for bringing that to the table. So many comments today. Thank you so much. Good morning, Nick. We have 2 mid first round picks and prospects. I could imagine we could make a pitch for both Cozens and Dobson. I don't. Yeah, your read on that is correct, Nicky boy. But again, working with the information that we have, and I'll just read it to you again. Let me just switch back so you could see it for yourself in case you don't. I'll link the story to this video description when I'm done. According to a source close to the Sabres, Buffalo looking for a comparable player at center and a top 4 right defenseman or elite prospect that is ready to go. Do the Canadiens have that? They want a comparable player to Cozens. They want a top 4 right side defenseman and or an elite level prospect to that isn't far away. Do the Canadiens have those in-house to make a deal? Kirby Doc is a project. He's not a comparable player. Jake Evans is a rental player. Montreal should not be in the business of looking at Michael Hage and throwing him out there for a Dylan Cozens. I don't believe anyway. We got lots of comments today. Thank you so much for all this stuff. Oh, my goodness gracious. So many comments to go through here. Morgan does not like the I'm not the biggest fan of the Cozens, 7.2 million. I know, yeah, we were talking about Engstrom, Jordan James. I know, but he does play. He is a left-handed defenseman, but he does play on the other side, just like Caden Gooley. Just like Caden Gooley has. Caden Gooley isn't as good on his offside as he is on his natural side, but I'm just saying that Engstrom has done a very good job of that in Laval for the number one team, the Laval Rocket, as they beat the Toronto Marlies, as Caden Primo doing rather well in Laval after being terrible in Montreal. But yeah, Jared Davidson also won a fight and scored his team-leading 17th goal of the season. It'll be interesting to see Jared Davidson, and as good of a year he's having. There's another guy that, when we move forward, Jared Davidson's year with the Laval Rocket makes me comfortable that Montreal could look seriously at trading Jake Evans and Yoel Armia, because they're not done rebuilding. And looking at Jared Davidson having a great year with Pascal Vincent, the number one team in the American Hockey League. What up? The Four Nations, a waste of time. Yeah. I like I'm not that thrilled for the Four Nations. I'm really not. But I'm also not going to miss Canada USA at 8:00. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. Don't forget, I'll be back here tomorrow morning. I will be here early, by the way. Excuse me. I will be here early, because I want to do some stuff on the Super Bowl with you tomorrow. So if you're up nice and early, you're going to love me, because I'm going to be on at, I believe, 8 a.m. 8 a.m. on Sunday morning right here as I come to you live each and every Saturday and every Sunday. Please give the video a like as we try to continue to go here. Thank you, Vinny. Very, very kind. Go Habs, go. Great show. Thank you, as I mentioned again, just to make sure that all my contributors, nobody likes working for free, and this show is certainly no different. So your support obviously means a lot as we continue to pour all of our resources, into this channel, just so that we can grow it, because we have big things. We have big things coming soon. Just to do a little bit more housekeeping. That we'll obviously, I'll be here all season. We'll be here doing this all season together. But as you could tell right there, I do like to play golf, and the plan is to bring you on the golf course with me, with some of my friends, for some lighthearted fun, for some maybe 9-hole challenges where we're going to be mic'd up, we're going to be filmed, having some fun on touring various Quebec golf courses. So that's the plan coming up for the spring and summer on this channel. And then, of course, when hockey season returns, we'll be right back into the swing of things. Salil? Sarin. What's up, Salil? New member to the Sean Starr Show. Hey, brother, it's great to see you. Welcome aboard. Thank you for that. Happy to continue to grow together. We're having lots of fun here, aren't we? And across the board, we say good morning to Ace. And this is a money point for me. I believe the talent is there. I do believe the talent is there. Thank you, Eddie. Do you think Tage Thompson is Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do. You know, this is the thing too. And I'll get back to your comment, Ace. I'll get back to your comment in a second. But do I Tage Thompson? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because like anything else, Buffalo realizes, just like we all do, that that they're terrible. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it, that they're terrible. And Buffalo is desperately trying to rebuild their culture. And I think they have a guy like Tage Thompson, and Tage Thompson taught them a lesson. He taught them a lesson. Ace, I think we have the talent. We need a cornerstone leader. That is a money point. And I think Ivan Demidov is going to be that guy. Salil, love your show. Thank you. Just subscribed. Hey, can we get a Sean Starr clap for Salil? Welcome to the family. Salil says he's a 50-year-old Habs fan. Patience, fellow Hab fans. Teams overpay at the deadline. Hughes and the draft, and Dobson is available by then. Patience, says Salil. And I like that, you know, because we're not talking about mortgaging anybody, mortgaging the future. We're talking about smart, shrewd moves made by Canadiens management. What's up, Gordon? Get some good Habs content in a crazy Leaf market. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you, brother. You know, I'm no Toronto fan by any stretch. I am not a Toronto fan. But boy, would I love to have the Montreal Canadiens be where the Toronto Maple Leafs are. And I know they suck in the playoffs and they haven't done anything, and the perception that they're soft, yada, yada, yada. But if the Montreal Canadiens can find talent the way the Maple Leafs have found talent and drafted that talent, I think that's what we're all here for, right? Montreal should make a trade that will get them that third first-round pick. Armia, Primo, Evans. Good comment, Costa. Thank you so much. Let's see how we're doing here. We got lots of comments today on possible trade speculation. Again, is the Montreal Canadiens on this game day taking on the New Jersey Devils live on TSN 690 at 1:00 today. 1:00 today on TSN 690. Their annual Super Bowl weekend matinee. I just wanted to punch this up. I just wanted to see something. Yeah, the Devils have not been al fuego. The 4 wins in their last 10. I just wanted to confirm that. I wasn't sure. Because as the Canadiens have fallen down the standings a little bit, I have more or less devoted most of my attention to trade speculation and seeing kind of where they're going from there. But the Devils coming off a 3-1 loss at home to Vegas on Thursday. And they've lost 2 of their last 3 of their last 5. You know, they lost to Philadelphia, they lost to Buffalo, they lost to Vegas, and they play at Montreal this afternoon at 1:00. Oh, I love this. Hey, fantastic. Happy anniversary, my man. Rick Spaghetti, proud member of the Sean Starr Show, and has been. A round of applause for Rick. He's suffered with me for a month straight. Rick, your sentence is not over. You're still sentenced. You got a life sentence with me, brother. Anastasios, love the show. I think the Habs trade all the UFAs for picks and maybe prospects and make their move on the draft floor. Thank you. I think the Canadiens are in the business of moving Jake Evans and Yoel Armia, Christian Dvorak to be determined. And I'm by the way, before I wrap up here, I am in the category of more picks. I'm fine. I'm fine with more picks because this is how I look at it. This is how I look at this. I look at this through the lens of it's fun. It's fun spending other people's money, right? And hear me out. I'm going to try to do my best to make this make sense for everybody. If the Montreal Canadiens want a package, they want to put together a package for, let's say, Noah Dobson or Dylan Cozens, right? And instead of using my picks, what if I make moves? What if Christian Dvorak gets me a third round pick? What if Jake Evans and Yoel Lamia, to an earlier comments point here, that gets me another pick, another first round pick, gets me a second round pick? Why can't I use that leverage? Why can't I use the return I get for dealing my UFA players, use what I get in return to fatten a package? Again, I'm spending their assets. I'm spending their money in order to get what I want. So I don't think there is such a thing as, oh, there's too many picks. Oh, there's too many picks. Now, listen, there's a difference, obviously, between getting a second round pick and a fifth round pick, obviously. But if we're talking about, I don't look at second, third round picks as garbage. I guess is what I'm saying. So if we're looking at it for that, then no. Good morning, David. I can't believe what I'm hearing from you. We're going from asking Demidov in return for Dobson to Mike Matt. Hey, what? David, don't hold on. I can't take you serious anymore. David, please, can you guys reply to that? Because that's not what I said. I've said it multiple times. If Lou Lamoriello calls for Ivan Demidov, when I hang up the phone, Dave. No. I even said that for Cole Caulfield. I'm not trading Cole Caulfield. I'm not even discussing trading Cole Caulfield or Ivan Demidov. David, just so if you're still with me, because you can't take me serious anymore, I just want to, maybe I thought I was quite clear on that. Anybody calls for Ivan Demidov, if anybody calls for Cole Caulfield, for Dylan Cozens, or for Noah Dobson, I hang up the phone. This is not happening. Not happening. Zeph, understand that some on this chat are okay. So, anyways, I just want to reiterate that I have waited my entire life, and I mean that. I have waited my entire Habs watching life for a player like Ivan Demidov. I'm not freaking moving the guy. I'm not moving the guy for a right-handed defenseman. I'm not moving the guy for Dylan Cozens, who's having down years. No. You want Ivan Demidov? You better give me Connor freaking McDavid. That's it. Or Cale Makar. So let's just clear that. I think. Oh, but anyways, I just in case anybody was wondering about that. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Hockey Dad. Anyone wants Demidov? It's McDavid and McKinnon. Even McKinnon, I don't know. I know he's going to have another 110-point season, but I don't know. I still want Demidov. Salil, just looking for a good start in 60 minutes of high-level compete against the Devils in Tampa. Yeah, that's, you know what, dude, that's a great comment. Full stop. It's a great comment. So I guess we've resigned to the fact that Montreal is not in the playoffs, and you're looking to build on good habits, right? We're looking to build on good habits, and that's what the Montreal Canadiens are trying to accomplish here. Jordan, do you think Montreal will get another Russian player for Ivan Demidov to help with the transition in North America? That's a good question. Thank you, Jordan. There was a funny story Ryan Whitney from Spit and Chicklets told this week on his time in Pittsburgh. It was a very, very funny story about they brought, when Evgeny Malkin was in the early days of his career as a Penguin, Sergei Gonchar was there and Michel Therrien was the coach. So that's how far back we're going, right? And he told this funny story about Sergei Gonchar was there to bridge the gap in communication between Michel Therrien, Evgeny Malkin. And what had happened was, I guess, Malkin wasn't having a good day, and Therrien was giving him the business, and Gonchar's translating Michel Terrien's words, and then Malkin starts talking back, and obviously Therrien can't understand him. He's like, "What's he saying? And basically Malkin goes, "If you bench me, I'm going back to Russia." So I do think I think it's a good idea. But I do believe, I just want to pull this story up. I do believe that Demidov is a very smart guy, and from what I get, and I'm going to have Marco D'Amico on from RG Media to talk about their conversation, RG Media, with Ivan Demidov. Let me put this up on the screen right now, and then I'm going to end on this. Let me show you this screen, okay? Just bear with me. I apologize. Just bear with me here. Pressure. Here it is. Let me put this on the screen. Here it is. Watch this. How cool is this? So this is brand new. Came out early this morning. Pressure makes you better. Ivan Demidov on KHL Records, development, and his future with the Montreal Canadiens, okay? And I have not read this story. I meant to get to it earlier this morning so we can go through it together, because what had happened was our friend, your favorite guest on this show, Marco D'Amico, threw out Q&A they were going to sit down with Ivan Demidov, and it's an exclusive interview. RG Media talks with Ivan Demidov about playing center in the NHL, learning English and French, his development in this league, right? And so when we go through his season, and obviously he's been a very, very dynamic player. And under the banner of development playing center, on his development, Demidov noted that working with former NHLer, former Canadian Sergei Samsonov last year was a huge help. Samsonov, as we know, remember he won the Calder, he was a Boston Bruin. Samsonov praised Demidov's ability to absorb information, pick up tactics quickly, qualifying his hockey IQ as elite. We don't talk as often now, said Samsonov, but last season we worked together a lot. That's Demidov quoting on working with Samsonov. We discuss my games, analyze tape to improve in some areas. When it comes to Demidov's development with Montreal, would he be comfortable transitioning back to center? Oh, baby. Demidov at center? I don't know if I could play center, says Demidov. I'd have to try. I played center a few times in junior, and I felt fine. Ska never uses me there. Face-offs would be a key factor. I don't always win them. Well, to me, that takes Ivan Demidov off the table for center. I do not want to be dealing with this again. You know, Jonathan Drouin, Alex Galchenyuk, yada, yada, yada. They have a star winger. Just put him on the wing, let him rip shots, let him score goals, let him have fun. Now, no doubt, Demidov's focus remains in the KHL, but he does follow the Canadiens close and has followed the team closely all season. Demidov declined to name specific players in the Canadiens he would like to play with, choosing his words carefully to not ruffle any feathers. I won't name anyone. Someone might get offended. So this is the fun part. Okay. So Marco D'Amico, who you guys love on my channel and will be with me again this week, threw out on Twitter any questions, because RG was going to have the exclusive interview with Demidov, and he threw out, anybody have any questions? And then I threw out a question. I said, yes, I got a question. Has he watched the Montreal Canadiens? I want to see if I could get this correctly here. Has he watched the Montreal Canadiens play? And who does he like on the team, more or less, right? And see if I could get this question for you. Blah, 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 blah. I'm so disorganized. I apologize for that. Oh, yeah, I went to Snowden Deli for lunch this week. First time in my life. It was very good. Anyways, I can't seem to find it. I apologize. The fact remains, though, that he didn't really answer. I said, who does he like? Who does he watch? Who could he see himself playing with? He says, I won't name anyone. Somebody might get offended. And he's ready for his time in Montreal. His contract expires on June 1st this summer. Montreal will look to sign him immediately so he can join the club for the start of next season. And of course, he's already beloved by this fan base. He did mention that he is continuing his English lessons, adding that he's also started to study on French. Demidov saying in the story, quote, I think my English is decent, but it's not for me to judge. I study when I have the time. I take online lessons with a tutor. I've also started to learn French. The hardest part is the pronunciation. Actually, everything about it is difficult. English is definitely easier. No doubt. No doubt. As someone that whose mother tongue is English, speaking about me, learning French is a very, very difficult language. And then obviously remember in December when Ken Hughes with Nick Bobrov and Vinny Lecavalier flew to Russia. Demidov was asked about that. Demidov said, quote, "They just asked how I was doing and they told me keep working, everything will come. Pressure is great. I feel like I'm growing mentally. Pressure makes me better." And when it comes to the attention, Demidov apparently is unfazed, saying, "I just don't read anything in the media. I have a phone. It's always on. Do not disturb. 5 hours before the game, I don't even touch my phone. I don't really want to talk to anyone. On Instagram, I have turned off all notifications. Nothing pops up. I just open it, check, and then close it." Very, very good. Very, very good. And then one of the, I guess, the areas where Demidov sometimes is criticized as it relates to his perceived lack of foot speed. Demidov saying he doesn't care what people say about him. It hasn't bothered me. I don't care about it at all. I just go out there and do my job. So there's the exclusive interview with Ivan Demidov. Very, very good stuff. Very, very positive. Very, very positive moving forward with Ivan Demidov. Yeah, exactly. I read the same thing, Zeffy boy. That he wants that Pizzetta's his guy. That Pizzetta's his guy. I gotta believe. No disrespect, but he wants to play with Nick Suzuki, right? Like, no disrespect to Kirby Doc, but like you watch Kirby Doc play, I don't think he's that guy, right? And I do believe at this point Kirby Doc's probably a winger, in my opinion. Yeah, people are not they're looking at Uri Slakowski. That's the thing too. It doesn't help that Slakowski has not followed up on last year. Logan Cooley's having a very good year, and Shane Wright, I think as of Friday morning, had the same amount of points as Uri did, 29 points each. So that's where we're at there. And that's, he's 20 years old. He's 20 years old, and I think in hindsight, it's just another guy that didn't get developed at the minor leagues, that didn't go to the AHL and ply his trade there. And that's the negative of learning on the job while doing the job. That's the negative there. But I am not in the camp of Uri. To me, is not a bust. It was not a mistake to draft Uri Slakowski. I do not believe that today, and that ultimately, it's like everything else. He is a work in progress. Oh, thank you, Jean. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. And don't forget, you can listen to me and Connor weekdays 6 to 10 on TSN 690. Well summarized, Ace. Well summarized. Thank you, everybody, for all of your generosity today. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Vinny, so much. Again, all of this does not go into the pockets of any of us. All of this goes into the fund as we continue to buy new graphics. This is a much better presentation, better lighting, better sound, better visuals across the board. And all of this goes into just making this channel as big as I possibly can. And of course, again, it helps put money in the pockets of my contributors, because if they help me grow, I don't work for free. You shouldn't work for free either. And neither should my guests. So thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Salil. Rick Springhetti, my guy. Happy 1 month anniversary to Rick Springhetti, proud member of the Sean Starr Show as well. So thank you so much for helping make this channel what it's turned into as we continue to grow on the regular. And I will be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. to get us going for the Montreal Canadiens and Tampa Bay Lightning. I will also have my Super Bowl picks, Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'll have a breakdown of Super Bowl 59. I will have some free NFL picks. If you like to sprinkle the pot with a couple of bucks on the game, I can definitely point you in the right direction. We'll react to the Canadiens and Devils and set up the Habs and I love Morgan's one of my favorites. I love Morgan. and we'll set up the Habs and Lightning and to recap what we're going to watch this afternoon. Okay, so thank you everybody. As Vinny Red says, have a great day. Thank you so much for being a part of the live stream today. We did some good numbers. I went longer than I normally do. We're at close to 90 minutes of me talking, because you guys are the best and let me do that all the time. Okay, so enjoy the game today. Enjoy your families, and stop. Did you really? No kidding. Yeah, my my great grandparents, my dad's grandparents, Jack and Ann Brotman, lived on Isabella. My Arguably my whole life, right? They lived on Isabella. I think it was Schlesinger who lived downstairs on Isabella, and John Schlesinger, I believe, and that was my dad's grandparents, and so we used to go there when I was a little boy. I was very blessed. I was very, very blessed in the sense that I got to know my great grandparents for until they passed away. I guess I was 12 or 13, and they were well into their 90s. And so I got to know my great grandparents for a really long time, and we used to go there almost every weekend. Um, and they lived on the corner, a little bit up on Isabella, but a stone's throw from Snowden Deli. And so, yeah, I've lived here, grew up here my entire life. And this week, I stepped foot into the famous Snowden Deli for the first time ever. Like, I've had the food before, I've had party sandwiches, yada, 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 but I've never been inside the restaurant, let alone sit at a table and eat lunch. And that place, Snowden Deli, if you're not from here, it's an iconic place. It's an old school Jewish delicatessen. Montreal known for bagels, smoked meat, and they do unbelievable smoked meat. And they always have. And great fries too, and the matzo ball soup, all your favorite comforts, right? And so I'd been in that area. I live in this area. I've always been around, and I've never gone in until this week when I walked in. And it was an awesome experience, and the food was just as good. One of those things where you go in like, oh, what's it going to be? What's it going to be like? Is it going to live up to the hype? You build things up in your own mind. And all that to say, it was a home run out of the park. The matzo ball soup, the smoked meat, the fries, the carnatzel, the grilled carnatzel with the mustard. Everything was phenomenal. The service was exceptional. Everything about it was a very enjoyable experience. And one of my colleagues at the radio station, Andrew Carter from CJAD, knew I was going. He says, oh, you got to bring back party sandwiches, the infamous Snowden Deli party sandwich. I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. So when I left, I ordered, a mixed variety of party sandwiches, right? There was half egg, half tuna. There was full egg, and there were pinwheels. So lox, cream cheese, pickle, all that stuff. And so I brought the assorted party sandwiches into the radio station on Friday. My God, I was an absolute hero. So that's cool, man. Thank you for saying that, Peter. Very, 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 very cool. And I was glad I was able to do it. And yeah, it's nice, the old comforts of home that we could say what we want about Montreal and the potholes and the corruption and the BS left, right, and center, but Montreal still got it, man. Still a great place to be every day. So thank you so much for being with me. Lots of fun on this Saturday morning. And make sure I will be back tomorrow morning to set up the Habs and Lightning recap this afternoon's game and some free Super Bowl 59 picks. And don't forget, make sure you turn your notifications on this channel because there is daily content that comes out from this channel. And we will have Marco D'Amico on. We will expand. I'll get his insight onto all of this trade rumor stuff. Noah Dobson, Dylan Cozens, anything else out there? And what are the Canadiens going to sell? Are they now more inclined to sell than they were at this point last week based on the wants and needs of other teams? So all of that coming up this week. I'll be here tomorrow morning with you bright and early at 10 a.m. So please, thank you again for all your support. Enjoy your Saturday afternoon. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow at 8 a.m.